as a first offender. Offense is negligent homicide, cruelty to infirm. Sentencing date is 7/30/2020. Sentence to 10 years. Parole date is 1/23/2021. Good time is 1/22/2022. Full term is 7/23/2028. Is this information correct, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kelsey.
Mr. Lewis, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay, and yourself?
Good. How old are you?
I'm 39.
And how old were you when the crime was committed?
36. Yeah.
So how long have you been incarcerated?
3. It'll be 3 years this July.
Okay. When's your last disciplinary write-up?
I haven't had any written.
No write-ups. All right. Do you have a high school diploma or GED?
Yes, sir.
One.
A high school diploma.
Okay. Where'd you graduate from?
Farrell S High School.
Okay. How, what do you currently do at the facility? What do you currently do there? Are you a trustee? What do you do?
Yeah, I work all 4 shifts. I work in the library also. I work all 4 shifts in cooking. I mean, in the kitchen.
Okay. How long you been doing that?
Maybe 2 years.
Have you taken any classes, any courses?
I took some when I first got here.
Like what?
So I know Second Chance, Seek and Safety. I'm not sure about the names of the other classes because I did that within the year I was here. The first year I was here.
Okay. Well, tell me, this is a pretty significant crime you were charged with. Tell me what happened. Tell me, I mean, what caused you to be in this position? I mean, tell me why we're here.
Just working and wasn't taking good care of my grandmother.
So you were out working. I mean, it's a little more than just not taking good care of your grandmother. Tell me, so were you? Is any drugs or alcohol involved? You just were never around. What exactly?
I was working a 9 to 5, like 7 to 4 at work. I don't do drugs or nothing like that.
Okay, I'm just asking. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how it comes to this. You get to this state. I mean, I read the arrest records. I read what I've been through the chart. I read what's going on. This is pretty significant here,
Yeah.
and it's just a little more than just not being able to take care of your grandmother. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Were you just never home, just in and out? Or did you just stay there at night? What was there anybody else taking care of your grandmother? Did you make arrangements for somebody to help when you were gone? Well, those are things that I'd like to know.
I was in and out, and sometimes I stayed there, and sometimes I did.
And if you didn't stay there, was somebody there with her?
Yes, I called my cousin over. She'll come and feed her and stuff.
And she couldn't get up or get down and had a significant medical problem, I suspect. I don't.
Yes, she was scared she was gonna fall on her knees or something, my grandmother. Sure,
but again, like I said, I'm still trying to get to how you weren't there seeing her. I mean, she's significant bed sores. I mean, we can go through the whole arrest report. I mean, that doesn't just happen overnight, right?
Right.
So she was in one spot and just kind of stayed there.
Yes.
And you guys just didn't have,
I tried. It was only me. It was only me. Yeah, I was the only one.
So, but when you left, you had other people that tried to stay there.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your plans if you were to be released? Where are you going to go? What you going to do?
I'm going to go stay with my sister, and I'm going to go work at Subway for right now and help my sister with her catering business.
Where is that?
She do it from her house. She paid it from her house.
Do you have any children?
One son.
How old is he?
22.
Does he live around or what?
Yes, he stayed with his grandmother.
What have you learned over the course of these couple of years about your crime, about what's happened here? I mean,
First off, I would start out putting my grandmother. I would have put my grandmother in a nursing home because to take good care, you have to take good care of somebody like that. I mean, that's hard work. Trying to do it by yourself. I would have probably put in a nursing home or either had the home health people to come because I see how serious the crime is. And that's why I say I put in a nursing home.
And did you chose to keep her though, correct? I mean, you chose to keep her or?
I didn't, my grandmother, I didn't know none of her information, like her money wise or nothing like that. So.
But how did you get to keeping her? Did you say, hey, I'll keep her or you can stay with me or how did that come about?
I went over there to stay with her.
Okay, staying with her.
Yeah.
So you chose to go over there and stay with her, said you'd take care of her.
Correct.
Does anybody in the facility have any input there? But do you have anybody, no warden, no staff in there with you?
No, sir.
No, special. Okay. All right. Now we'll hear from Mr. Alvin Roche, okay?
Okay.
Good morning, Ms. Lewis. How are you?
I'm doing okay. And yourself?
Good. You skirted the issue with Mr. Kelsey asked you about programs. I need to know what programs you've completed during your incarceration.
Like I said, I know it's a second chance class of seeking safety. I didn't do any DOC classes because they wasn't given to me at the time during the pandemic.
So you didn't do any victim awareness. You didn't do any anger management.
No, that was like some of that was taught in the second chance class.
Okay. And I see why you didn't earn any good time for that class. Why is that?
And a good time, but I didn't have the DOC classes. I didn't take any of those because
you didn't take any DOC classes.
Correct.
Okay, because if you would have, you'll probably be out on good time by now.
Yes. They told me they didn't know when the classes was going to start up. They did one class here for the females, but I didn't have my DOC number. I had just got processed and I didn't have my DOC number.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Lewis. Thank you for your honesty.
You're welcome.
All right, now we'll hear from Ms. Cotton.
Okay.
Go ahead and make a statement, Ms. Cotton. Turn your mute off. Okay, go ahead. Now we hear from Ms. Cotton. Hey, you have to. Yeah, I can hear feedback, guys. Y'all have to. Ms. Cotton.
Good morning.
Whoever's got a phone can have to walk away. You know.
It's on. Y'all can hear me? I'm on.
You're on, but you have double feedback. There's two. You must have two things on at the same time. One of them's got to go off.
You have to turn off the YouTube, ma'am, please, in the background.
You better go in the house.
Stay.
I can't go in there.
All right, would you like to make a statement now?
Hello?
Hello, would you like to make your statement now?
I can't hear nothing.
Tell him the chick.
All right, we'll take Miss Cotton off. We'll hear from Miss Ebony right now. Go ahead and put Miss Cotton on mute. Miss Ebony, would you like to make a statement?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Chasity, I just want to let you know what kind of person she is and her role with me. She's a kind, hardworking person, the sweetest person you'll ever meet. She's not, has never been a troublemaker. She's a caring person. She's also been a mentor to me in her role in accounting. That was her position before her incarceration. I'm currently the head of an accounting department for a large labor union organization. And my very first opportunity was given to me by Chasity when I worked under her at the Shaw Group. She took a chance on me and spoke up for me to get an opportunity 13 years ago, which I'm very grateful for. At the time, I only had experience as a concession worker at a movie theater. What happened to her, what happened was due to her not knowing what was going on with her grandmother and possibly being overwhelmed at the time. Her grandmother was a very independent woman, and in our family, our elders are not open to being in a nursing home. We do realize, because of this situation, how serious that is, and have, had talks with our family about nursing homes due to this. They think we don't care about them if we do that. But she also had a full-time job at the time. She's also a full-time mother and an aunt to her nieces and nephews. She's very, very involved with all of them. She may have still been depressed as well because she lost a child shortly before she lost her grandmother. That's all I have. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on her behalf, for her to be paroled out to come home to her family and continue to be a productive member of society.
All right, thank you. All right, Miss Melissa, would you like to make a statement?
Yes, good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good.
So I actually met Chasity Lewis while she was incarcerated at East Baton Rouge Parish Prison. I was an employee through Southern University Ag Center. We taught parenting class, which is the second chance to recover class that she speak of, as well as a 4-H life program that allow her visitation with her children in a non-traditional setting for the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison. But Chasity Lewis was a very active participant in the Southern University Ag Center 4-H life and second chance to recover program. She would go above and beyond to help other students complete weekly assignments. Chasity was a dedicated leader in the program, as well as a model participant on the dorm. Although participants were only allowed to complete the program once, which was a 6-week program, she completed the program multiple times. She believed in what we taught, and she began incorporating many of those things while incarcerated. Chasity didn't allow her reason of being incarcerated to hinder or stop her from doing great things while incarcerated. She sees every opportunity to be a better version of herself. She always focuses on ways to better herself as well as others around her. I hope you find in your heart to see the growth Chasity has achieved over the last 2.5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Miss Crystal, did y'all get those issues resolved, you think?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm Chastity's sister, where she'll be residing at. I live at 4021 Alita Drive in Park Forest, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in Park Forest subdivision. And I have my own business, and I can use the help because business has been picking up with weddings and baby showers and different things. And I just really want my sister home because she's really not a criminal like they paint her out to be. We'll do anything for our grandmother. Like, she worked a 9 to 5 as an accountant, helped me with my kids, picking them up from daycare and stuff. And if y'all can just give her a chance, because she's not a criminal. This has all just been a big misunderstanding. Like, we would never hurt our grandmother. Like, people can vouch for her. If more people could have been on speaking, they would have. Like, she's not the person the system painted her out to be. She's never been in trouble a day in her life.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All right, Chasity, would you like to make a statement on your behalf?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm sorry about the situation.
Yes,
And I learned my lesson from it, and I know what to do. I have to take care of somebody else elderly in my family, or whatever the case may be. And like I said, I'm sorry that the situation happened. And I don't know. I'm like, just move forward. Like I said, I learned my lesson from this.
All right. Thank you. Is the panel prepared to vote? Ms. Lewis, hey, look, this is a tough situation. It is, you know, tough crime, tough situation, tough spot to be in. You're right. Look, I'm in the healthcare business, so I know it's hard. It's difficult to take care of people, but when we accept that responsibility, we accept that responsibility. You know, not saying you meant to do it or not to do it. It happened. I would, but you know, I would like to see you have had some a little more, some classes, some treatment, something to help you, because it does sound like you do have some mental health issues, maybe some depression issues. I'm not sure. You sound like to me that you're just trying to come to grips with it a little bit. I think, you know, for me, I would like to see you get some classes, some victim awareness, maybe understand more about the crime, you know, what happened. So with law enforcement opposition, with not having enough classes, I would vote to deny you parole today.
Okay.
Mr. Roche. Plus, you have a good time date. It's shortly coming up in January. Mr. Roche.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Lewis, based upon express opposition, insufficient time served, a lack of programs, I deny your request.
Okay.
Miss Renatson.
My vote, likewise, my vote is to deny based on the opposition that's been expressed, insufficient time served. So that's my vote.
All right, you have 3 votes to deny. Your parole's been denied. Good luck to you. We'll adjourn at 10:55 in East Baton Rouge.
I really don't know what's more. I have the details of this, and I'll go over with you. And it is just disturbing. It is disturbing, and it's just so much more disturbing just seeing this parole hearing, seeing how she takes no responsibility, seeing the enablers around her saying it's just a big misunderstanding. Oh, I'm sorry for what happened. What are you in here for? I was supposed to be taking better care of my grandmother. It's like she was found with infected bed sores. She was dehydrated. She weighed 100 pounds. She had fecal infections. She died because of it. You didn't just not take care of your grandmother. You slowly watched her rot. You moved into her home so that you could have a place to stay. You took who knows what, and you watched her rot away. This isn't a mistake. You are a criminal. You have problems. You're disgusting. That a granddaughter could do that to a grandmother, it's unreal. And then to show absolutely zero remorse. There are some sick people out there. We live among them.
Tonight on an extremely disturbing case of elder abuse. These 2 women right here accused of neglecting their grandmother until she died. Our Graham Mulkins is here with more on this tragic story.
Yeah, Elizabeth, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I have to warn you, too, that the details of this case are not for the faint of heart. Carl Butler and Chasity Lewis arrested today and charged with manslaughter. They'd reportedly been living with their grandmother at this apartment complex on North Foster Drive. Her name was Barbara Lewis Brown. Police say the final months of her life were just awful. Detectives say the granddaughters finally called 911 this morning to get their grandmother help, but at that point, it was just too late. Paramedics and detectives said they were hit with the ammonia smell of urine before they even got inside the apartment.
Ms. Brown was lying on the sofa. She had bed sores with maggots in them, and her flesh was starting to mend with the actual material on the sofa. There was dried blood and flies that were embedded inside the sofa. So you can imagine what the detectives saw. You can imagine what the kind of condition that she was living in.
The 77-year-old woman weighed 103 pounds. She died about 2 hours after she got to the hospital today. The cause of death listed as stage 4 bed sores combined with malnourishment and dehydration. Again, these were her granddaughters who were arrested. Police say they're now trying to track down her kids to see just how long this neglect had been going on. Elizabeth, they say more charges are possible.
Was I exaggerating? No, I think it's actually worse. It's unreal. You wouldn't, how would you have thought that by watching this parole hearing? I'm sorry for what happened. Oh, you know, she's not, it's just a big misunderstanding. She's not a monster. Stage 4 bed sores. I didn't even know there was such a thing. Maggots in them. How is this? How is it that she even only serves? 77-year-old grandmother. Imagine having that your grandchildren are the ones that do that to you. That everyone just neglects you. Some certain things, so much pain and suffering to be done by your own flesh and blood. And then when it's all said and done, and you're sitting in prison to still not take any accountability. You know, and they dropped the charges on a lot of other the members. For whatever reason, they only press charges on her. Seems to be the case. I'll put the links in the description for this, but thank you, Richard, for bringing this to my attention. This was a tough one. But you might not believe it if you didn't see it, and here it is. With that, I'll let you go.
Classified as a third offender. Offense is manslaughter. Parole date is 10/27/2015. Good time date is 5/12/2075. And full term date is 10/25/2075. Is this information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Wise, you may start the interview.
Okay, thank you very much. Back in 7/19/2018, you were denied on this board. One of the things I want to ask you, what is some of the programs you've taken since the last time that you spoke with us? What programs have you taken? You taken Thinking for a Change back on 11/25/19. That's a program.
Yes, sir.
I'm not talking about working
Yes,
at a
sir.
different place or anything like that. I'm talking about program.
It was Thinking for a Change, and I enrolled back in school and achieved my HiSET.
Okay.
My
You
GED.
completed your GED.
Yes, sir.
What other programs was you offered?
I was offered Inside Out Dad last month.
I'm talking about since 2018. I ain't talking about since last month, since 2018. What is some of the programs you've been offered that you have not taken?
Since 2018, I have none. I took the substance abuse, anger management, the 100 hours, and AA, victims awareness, and since 2018, it was just a Thinking for a Change and my HiSET. That's pretty much everything.
Is the warden there?
Yes, sir.
Warden, is anything you'd like to say on his behalf?
He's, like I said, he's been a min-aide since July of 13. Got 45 write-ups. Last write-up was in 13. Not a whole lot there. Has been keeping a job as well. He has moved around, but he's maintained a job. and not had a whole lot of anything from him as far as we're concerned on security since 13. He's been doing good.
Okay. He advised the program that he completed was his in the last 4 years, since 2018, the programs he completed would have been his GED and Thinking for a Change. These are 2 programs that he's been involved in. Is there more programs than just those 2 programs he could have been taking in the last few years?
Did you do the, it's got it here that he did victims awareness. Did you do victims awareness?
Yeah, I completed it.
There's not a date on the
We don't have a
certificate for
date.
victim awareness, and there's not really anything else that he would have been able to access. Yeah, we have Malachi Dads, we have other things.
I
but
completed
it's not-
that too. I completed Malachi Dad.
You did?
Yes.
Malachi Dads, you remember when?
2008, 9, somewhere around in there.
I have the programs that he's completed that we have on file here. That's why I asked you about the programs he's completed. He completed some programs before then, but I'm talking about in the last, since 2018.
Correct, and there are no other official programs that he would be eligible or that would be offered to him.
Okay. All right. Your last disciplinary write-up would have been back in was it 13?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I believe it was a low court, right? If I'm not mistaken.
If you were to get out, where would you be living?
When after parole project, I would be moving to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. If I was granted parole project, I would be Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
Do you have some kind of form of job or something you would be doing in Hattiesburg, Mississippi?
Mr. Wise, at this time, I do not have a job lined up in Hattiesburg, but if I was to be granted parole project, before I leave the parole project, I would have a job lined up. I have a sister who lives in Hattiesburg, and I could, her husband works for Koch Food Industries, and I would be able to go to work there.
Right. The time that you've been incarcerated there, what trades did you get while you were there? Like a trade school or anything that you've been involved with?
One of the biggest trades that I could take with me when I leave here would be ranch work, would be, to be able to work livestock and help train horses and to operate heavy equipment, stuff of that nature.
I look here, you have a good time date of 2075, and you're thinking for a change. You got 75 credits for thinking for a change. Your CTRP days you have is 165. That's why I asked, is there any other programs he can take there that could benefit him from his good time?
Nothing that he get credit for. Yeah, Mr. Reynolds tell us nothing that he would get credit for.
Well, he has a good time date. He has a good time date, and it adjusted. He gets time taken off in his good time date. That's why I asked.
That's everything.
Okay. On the crime, is anything today would you say to the victims or the victim's family, speaking directly to the board, that you could say?
Yes, sir. To the Owens family, I would like to say that I am truly, truly sorry. Excuse me, for the hurt and the pain that I have caused you for for my senseless act. I understand your grief. I understand your bitterness, and I understand. I understand it. And I am sorry. I am truly sorry. I regret what I've done. I regret hurting you. I regret the impact that I caused in our community. And I'm sorry.
All right. During the time of this instance, were you on drugs or alcohol?
Yes, sir. I was.
What were you on?
Alcohol, pills, smoking pot, cocaine, crack cocaine.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Scarborough, how long were you doing drugs? When did you start doing drugs?
I started doing drugs at a young age. 12.
What did you start doing? What did you start using?
I started smoking pot at a young age, 12, 13.
Okay.
As I progressed into my later teenage years, I moved into the more harder stuff, cocaine and pills and alcohol, stuff like that.
How often were you using illegal substances or legal substances such as alcohol? How much did you drink?
Pretty much on an everyday basis, at least. After work, it was every day, probably 12-pack to sometimes a case or more.
Well, you've got a bunch of arrests, and I've looked at all of them, and I don't see one alcohol or drug-related incident. You say you were on drugs that particular night, but I don't see that you were charged in any of these other offenses with drugs or alcohol, which is unusual for someone who has been doing drugs or alcohol for that length of time.
Yes, sir, it is. I understand.
So you were either very good at disguising it or getting away with it. How can I be sure you're not going to go back to doing those very same things? The facts of this case is just absolutely horrible. What you did is absolutely horrible. How can you convince me that you're not going to go back to drinking, doing drugs, and perhaps doing something like this again?
Well, Mr. Marinella, is it?
Close enough.
What's his last name?
Marabella.
Okay, okay. Sir, I would have to say, sir, that first and foremost, when I leave here, if I was to be granted, I would find a sponsor out there, and I would involve myself in substance abuse programs wherever I may live, and I would keep myself surrounded by positive people who understands exactly what I have been through, and maybe, just maybe, that I can actually help someone who has not advanced quite as far as I have in my sobriety, and just share some of my past with them, and with the love and support of my wife and her family, sir, and the love and support of my family, and the will that I have, sir, and the desire that I have to want to make it in life, and to never forget this place, because I want this place to always be a constant reminder to me of what I don't never want again in life. It's been hard. I know it hasn't been hard just for me. I know it's been hard for the Owens family, and I understand it. And I know what I did was wrong. And I take responsibility for that. I do. I live with it every single day. I know they do. I know it was a horrible thing. But I believe,
Mr. Scarborough, do you consider yourself to be a drug addict?
yes, sir. I do.
Consider yourself to be an alcoholic?
Yes, sir, I do.
How long do you believe, or how often do you believe you're going to have to go to meetings or support groups or anything like that? How long do you think you'll have to do that before you can get this behind you?
I believe that it's something I'm going to have to do for the rest of my life.
How long have you been in prison now?
Over 25 years.
Ms. Teresa, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Ms. Pearl?
Thank you, Teresa. Sir, how long have you been a trustee?
Since 2012, 13.
Which one?
13.
Oh, that's uninterrupted, just straight Class A trustee?
A Class A trustee.
Since 2013. Thank you. That's all I had.
Is that correct?
If there are no further questions at this time, we will hear from our guests who have indicated they would like to speak. Can we have Ms. Alice Scarborough?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. If you'll give us your name and tell us what it is you'd like us to know, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Alice Scarborough. I am Farrell Scarborough's wife. We've known each other for about 5 years. We've been married for 2 years. Short and sweet, I just want to say what a impact that Farrell has made, not only in my life, but the lives of my children and my family. Our plans are to get to Mississippi after parole project. And we want to become involved with marriage counseling, whether it be with my pastor here or a church that we find there. We want to be involved in substance abuse programs every day if we have to go every day. But it's going to take a mountain, and it's going to take both of us to have jobs to make our dream a reality. I believe going to the parole project first will give him a chance to breathe, take a chance to step back into society with support from the parole project. My family is behind us 110% wherever we may decide to end up in Mississippi. Mississippi is where we want to go, where we want to be in Hattiesburg. I am a paraprofessional for elementary school. I have contacted 2 schools up there, and they're willing to give me an interview if and when I can get up there. So we have jobs. I have a job where I can go to. I also am a cashier, fruit cutter at a local supermarket here. So I have supermarket experience. So first and foremost, without both of us having a job, we wouldn't be able to make it. But I will be able to have a job to get us started, and that's where I think is important that we both eventually will have to work to make that a reality. The ugliness that he once was, yeah, it's still there, but it's gone. It's gone. I see his character. I see his bravery. I see the traits that he has in working with the range crew. He builds beautiful bowls. He has provided for me when I was without a job, making bowls and woodwork that I was able to bring here to help provide for me. He's a changed man. He's a changed man, and he is truly remorseful for his crime, but he does have support. He has support from me. He has support from my family, and he has support from his family as well. I thank you for the time, just to let me share, and that you can see a little bit of the sincerity and the realness in my heart about Farrell. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Mr. Hunley from Louisiana Parole Project.
Andrew Hunley with Louisiana Parole Project. We come to the board today to inform you that Farrell continues to be a client of Parole Project. Obviously, Farrell committed a horrible crime, and our organization isn't here today to make excuses for Farrell's actions in the past that harm people. And we know from speaking to Farrell that Farrell's never made excuses to us, and he's always taken responsibility. However, we stand before you today because of our confidence in Farrell and that he's changed significantly and he's continued to grow. This is actually his third parole hearing. He was denied 2 times before, and each time he's been denied, he's not gotten disciplinary reports after being denied. He's maintained his Class A trustee status. I know Mr. Wise asked him earlier about his programming. He's continued to take programming after the denials. And I think he's at a point where in the last couple of years, thinking for a change and attaining his high set, both of those are pretty significant, programs and achievements that can't be accomplished in just a few days or a few weeks. But he has, and that's impressed our organization. He hasn't given up. He's continued to better himself, and that's why we stand behind him. I can tell you from personal experience, having seen him work on the range crew, he is an individual that will have no problem attaining a job and keeping a job. Some jobs in prison mean you work a couple hours a day and it's over. When you work a job like the range crew, oftentimes you're working 7 days a week, sun up to sundown. And he was an outstanding worker there, and I can attest that he has skills that will allow him to keep a job, find and keep a job, if he's released. If he's released to Parole Project, as the board is familiar with our program, we work with men and women who've served long prison sentences. We are committed to helping Farrell learn technological skills, learn life skills, soft skills, social skills, assist him with an array of services that will reduce the likelihood that he comes back in contact with the criminal justice system. We have been working with Alice, his wife, and him so that they understand what our expectations are. And to be honest, we have strongly recommended an out-of-state residence plan so that, number one, he can start his life and have a opportunity to truly start over. But number two, that the community that he had harmed does not have to worry about him being around if he is released. And Parole Project certainly recommends that if this board would grant him to our program, we would work with probation and parole for him to be given an ICOTS approval as soon as possible. In closing, I just want to reiterate that Parole Project recognizes that he committed a serious offense, and we don't want to minimize that. Nonetheless, we have a strong degree in confidence in his change and what he has done to work on himself. Even though he had been denied parole 2 times already, he's continuing to improve himself and follow rules and regulations at Angola and work hard. If the board has any other questions, we stand by to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunley.
Ms. Sheila Maddie.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Ms. Maddie, if you would just give us your name and tell us what you'd like us to hear, please. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. My name is Sheila Matei. I'm Mary York's daughter. What I'm concerned about is when you asked him to, how he felt about what he did, he not only murdered my mother's fiance, he tried to murder my mother, raped her, left her for dead, set the trailer on fire. My mother had to run through that fire and lay in a ditch till the ambulance got there. And he has not once apologized to my mother for what he's done. And I think that's horrible. It's like Mr. Kevlin Owens, I love him to death. He was my stepdad. He violated him by killing him, but he violated my mother also. And when we went to court about it, Miss Sherbert Abear assured my mother that we wouldn't have to bring those charges up on him because they were multi-billing him and he was going to have 80 years and he would never get out. So the charges that he did to my mother were never pressed on him for rape and attempted murder on my mother. And I just don't feel safe. My mother doesn't feel safe. I don't feel safe with him out. I understand he's had with the horses and all that rehabilitation with that stuff, but it doesn't help my feelings any about rehabilitation for rape and murder.
I haven't slept for 3 nights.
And my mother hasn't slept for 3 nights.
Scared to death.
She's scared to death. He's going to get out. And his mother, which she's passed away now, but I live in Killian, Louisiana. She lives right down the road from me in Killian, Louisiana. His sister lives in French Settlement, his other sister, So, I mean, there's no way you can move him far enough. For me, sorry to be honest with you. And he is my niece, my mother's granddaughter's uncle. And my mother, his mother emancipated them, him and his sister, when they were 12 years old. My mother took them in at 12 years old and raised him, until we moved to Florida. And then when we come back from Florida, like in 92, 93, we were together. I had broke up with him in 95 because my mother and Kevlin, the one he murdered, wouldn't allow him to see me. And I didn't want to see him. He retaliated by sitting in the back of their trailer on a propane tank with a window open. They had a fan in the window, sat there, stripped his clothes off naked, and had a bottle of whiskey on that propane tank. And he busted through that window and hit that man in the head and automatically killed him, knocked my mother out, drug her to the back bedroom, raped her, thought he left her for dead, and left the trailer. And my mother had to run out of the trailer full of fire, got burnt all over her body and everything.
Sheila.
And not one apology has come from him for what he's done to my mother.
Miss Sheila, just
Yes,
real
ma'am.
quick. You have already passed your time limit, so I'm going to go to the next victim so that way they are allowed to speak.
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
Who's the victim's grandson?
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
Thank you, Ms. Mati.
Hi, Sammy DeMarco, Kevlin Owens' grandson. I just want to start by quickly saying thank you. I thank God that I'm here today. I want to thank my family for being here, even though this is devastatingly difficult. But they know how important it is to let you guys hear the impact that this had and continues to have on me and my family. I was very close to Kevin. I called him grandfather. We were very close. I visited him at least once a week. I just want to go back to the week of the week that Mr. Scarborough committed these heinous acts. Just that very week, when I would visit grandfather, it was just a simple visit. He had made red beans and rice. He was always proud of it, bragged about it, and we shared meals together. That's basically what we did, and just hung out. But on the day that this happened, I had dropped someone off. I was in high school. I had dropped someone off at the parking lot, and my friend, Aaron Carr, God rest his soul, approached me and wanted to know what I was doing there and if I had heard. And he said, "Sammy, have you heard?" And I said, "What?" "Your grandpa, bro, your grandpa." I said, What are you talking about?" It's like, "He's dead. He's dead. He was killed early this morning. My mom told me." And it just didn't sink in because I had just seen grandfather. We just shared a meal just a few days before that. And I remember dropping to my knees. And him and Mike Piazza picked me up, put me back in my car, and we drove to the scene. And as we approached, the reality of it just began to set in. As I arrived to this crime scene that was still smoldering from the night before. I mean, the fire was so hot, it burned up the car. It reached so far. And I just wailed for the rest of the day. And I wish I could say it stopped, but when the detective called and said that we'd have to do this all over again, he called back in January. It just pulled all those emotions right back to the surface. So the violence continues. That Mr. Scarborough, it didn't stop. And when he committed the actual act, the violence continues. We are still, I have to listen to my mom wailing over the phone. My aunts, my uncle, they have to go through this over and over again. And that's, it's great. Mr. Scarborough's trying to improve himself and he's doing all these programs or whatnot, but it just doesn't feel just. Just doesn't feel like justice has been served. I mean, he's set to get out 2075, 54 years from now, and there's a possibility that he may walk today or whenever, this year. Well, he'd be younger than my grandpa was the day he took his life. And that just doesn't feel like justice to me.
Mr. Singh.
I request that you guys deny his parole. And I appreciate your time. I just want you guys to know, I know that my aunts and my uncle have spoken in the past.
Mr. DeMarco,
but I want to give voice to a new generation. There's a whole other generation at his actions.
Mr. DeMarco, thank you for your comments, sir. We have a lot of people that want to speak today.
Can we now have Ms. Gwendolyn?
Ms. Gagliano, you are on mute.
Okay, are you there?
There you are. If you would give us your name and tell us what you'd like us to hear, please.
My name is Gwendolyn Gagliano, and I'm the daughter of Kevin Owens, the victim. My daddy didn't deserve what this man did to him. Days before this occurred, my father came to me at my place of business and pulled me to the side, and this is the first I heard. Of course, he didn't address this man as Farrell. He said, Bubba. Was telling me that he was threatening and stalking him and that he threatened to kill him and that he had a restraining order. I said, well, that should take care of it. And he said, no. He said, this man is not right. He said, he's going to kill me. I know it. But if he does, please make sure justice is served. My daddy was only 53 years old at the time. This man stole away his hopes and his dreams. He stole away our memories of the things that this family went through. I mean, at the birth of our grandchildren and things, birthdays, graduations. And he's going to say, use drugs as an excuse. Yeah, he's been in there 25 years, but also remember, my dad has been in the ground for 25 years. He didn't deserve this. He just wanted this man to leave him alone. And he's in his home watching television on this October night, sound asleep. And this man comes to the window. I mean, this is supposed to be a fast at the moment thing. But he's sitting there and he disrobes himself, comes through the window. I mean, I had a firefighter that was on the jury the day of the sentencing when it was all done. He approached me and he apologized. And he told me, he said, I'm so sorry. He said, I kept trying to press to them that he lit him a fire with coal oil. So he said, this man was with your father for quite a while because coal oil doesn't light easily. On this very day, my brother, my husband, and my dad's friend went to view the scene. My brother, I still went there and went up in there, and there was my daddy, the outline of his body, where they forgot to take some of his bones. They had to pick him up and put him in a box. My brother saw all this. All he had to do, this Farrell Scarborough, was just do as the restraining order asked. He didn't want this. I mean, this man, I mean, you all probably had your fathers with you at special moments when your first grandchild was born, your children's graduations and stuff. I mean, you had these memories. We don't. All we can do is just think, I wonder what our daddy would have thought. And as a woman, all girls, their daddies are special to them. It's just knowing that your father is there at any time if you just need to talk to him, get advice. Well, this man, he took all that away from this family. I mean, I have children, grandchildren ask.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It is now time for Mr. Thomason from Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Ms. Gagliano, for your comments.
I'm going to introduce Detective Stanley Carpenter. He's a detective that investigated this case in 1995. Detective Carpenter.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. My partner at the time, Detective Darrell Curtis, and myself had worked the incident in question. Very gruesome homicide. Mr. Owens was beaten, totally unconscious, according to Mr. Scarborough's statement. Mr. Scarborough also said that he had placed toilet paper on him and set him on fire. In his statement, whenever he talked with us, he emphatically stated that he did not do narcotics, that he was strictly drank beer, drank alcohol, but at no time did he use cocaine, did he use pills or anything like that. He stated that he didn't do those types of drugs, but he did smoke pot. And there was never anything mentioned about him doing narcotics or being, under narcotics when he committed this act.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Brett Sommer.
Mr. Sommer, if you would please introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like to say.
Hi, my name is Brett Sommer. I'm an ADA at the District Attorney's Office in Livingston, which was the prosecuting agency for Mr. Scarborough. Mr. Scarborough was tried and convicted by a jury of his peers. The trial court, who heard the underlying facts, sentenced Mr. Scarborough to 80 years based on the case and his status as a habitual felony offender. This underlying offense is one that caused permanent damage. The loss suffered by these victims that we're hearing from today cannot be quantified. our office knows of no reason why he should be granted parole eligibility after serving approximately a third of the sentence given by the trial court. This was a particularly heinous offense. So on behalf of our office and Mr. Scott Perilou, we object to any consideration, and we strongly urge this board to deny Mr. Scarborough's application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Summer. Ms. Teresa, are there?
That's all the participants.
Thank you. Ms. Hogan, would you like Mr. Scarborough to make a statement before you close?
Yes, sir. I'll reserve my comment till the end. Thank you.
Mr. Scarborough?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the board before Ms. Hogan finishes?
Well, again, I do want to apologize to the Owens family for the pain and the grief that I have caused them. And I want to say that prior to me coming to prison, prior to me being arrested and coming to Angola, I used to believe that people who committed acts of violence, real serious crimes, had no place in society. And I believed that prison was the place for them. But after serving nearly 25 plus years, I have seen a lot of change in a lot of people, including myself. I believe in change. I believe that we all, some of us do make mistakes in life. But I believe that as long as we don't perish from our mistakes, that as long as we learn from them, I believe that's what makes us a better people. I honestly do. And I can't undo what I've done. I know I have caused a lot of pain and grief for my senseless act. But I will say that regardless of the outcome here today, whether it be granted or denied, I will continue to become a better person, and I will continue to do what is right. And I ask that the board take into consideration everything that was said here today by both sides. And I thank you for your time. I thank you for allowing me to be here again. And I thank God for this opportunity as well. And I want to thank the Parole Project for considering me also.
Thank you, Mr. Scarborough. Ms. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Scarborough is parole eligible pursuant to Act 790. The reason that we have Act 790 is because after serving 20 years in prison and reaching the age of 45, there is sort of a natural progression, or what we call criminal menopause. People that serve that much time and that age out of criminal mentality tend to not need to serve out lengthy prison sentences. And I think that that's really apparent if you look at Mr. Scarborough's record. He's now been up 3 times pursuant to Act, this is his 3rd hearing pursuant to Act 790. And even though he has been denied twice before, as Mr. Hunley said, he stays the course. He doesn't get new write-ups. He completes new programs where available. He's worked jobs that require significant amounts of trust. He's lived at Camp F. He worked the range crew for 5 years. And the fact that he hasn't had any new write-ups since 2013 and completed all available programs really shows that he is completely aged out of the criminal mentality. And if he were to be released, his likelihood of recidivism is extremely low. With the support of the Parole Project to reacclimate him to society, and his eventual long-term plan with his wife and with his family in Mississippi, I believe that his likelihood of success upon reentry is very high. And if this board feels more comfortable with Mr. Scarborough going directly to Mississippi without being in Louisiana, for the parole project. The parole project is committed to providing mentorship from afar. We've done that in other cases. So if the board would rather that he doesn't pass go and goes directly to Mississippi, that's certainly something that we can make happen. So we would submit that Mr. Scarborough should be granted parole under any conditions deemed appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hogan. Ms. Teresa, are there anyone else to speak?
We have Ms. Pearl.
Yes, I recommend executive session to discuss confidential matters related to this case.
I'll second that.
Ms. Pearl Wise.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Wise.
Yes.
Mr. Tony Marabella.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be in executive session to discuss some confidential matters. We'll be back shortly.
Well, that was a 10-minute wait time, which is quite longer than usual. Also, Act 790. We'll go over that at the end of this hearing. It's the first time that I have heard of it, but yeah, we'll unpack at the end. With that, let's jump back in.
Okay, we will come back in session now. Is the panel ready to vote? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
At this time, I went over the case, and I'm going to tell the victim, like I told you later, there's coming a time that Mr. Scarborough will be getting out because of his age and everything that he's been doing since he's been incarcerated. There's some more things I think he needs to still work on. Yeah, very, very strong opposition from law enforcement, district attorneys, opposition, also victim's family. He's a third offender, his criminal history, poor criminal history. And I think you need to work on as many programs as you can. I know you said you worked on everything that you can, but try to get in some more programs, and if they allow you to. Today, my vote is to deny.
Ms. Wise?
So, Mrs. Scarborough, I'm just overwhelmed with what has been stated here today. At this point, I concur with Mr. Wise. My vote is the same for the same reason that's been stated on the record.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. In reviewing this case, it is unquestionable that this was a horrible crime. No one can argue with that. No one will say anything differently. I have absolutely heard the family of the victim here today. I've heard the daughter. I've heard the grandchildren. I've heard what they said. And it breaks my heart for them to have to go through this at the hands of Mr. Scarborough, and I understand that. We all have roles in this process. The law may not seem fair to people who find themselves the victims of crime, but our laws are in place for a reason. Law enforcement has their role. They arrest people for what they believe they've done. The district attorney then charges people for what they believe they've done. Juries then hear the case and they return verdicts for what it is they believe the person is guilty or not guilty of, and a judge sentences them. I am familiar with these roles because I've been in every one of them. I was a prosecutor, I was a defense lawyer, I was a judge, and I was a juror. Now I find myself in a wholly different role, and that is as a member of the parole board. And my responsibility, although I take into account all factors, I look at, and I'm to look at who Mr. Scarborough is today. For whatever reason, in looking back, the district attorney charged him with murder. A jury found him guilty of manslaughter. Horrible facts, but they decided for some reason manslaughter. Again, those are all things in the past. That is not something that I need to put a whole lot of weight on, because my responsibility is today to determine what, if anything, and who Mr. Scarborough is today. Having heard all of those things, having heartfelt sympathy for all of the victims, it would be my vote today to grant this parole. And at some point, I believe he is going to be granted parole, just as Mr. Wise said earlier. At some point, he will get out. Apparently, and unfortunately for him, it's not today. There are 2 votes to deny and 1 vote to grant. Your parole has been denied, Mr. Scarborough.
Thank you.
Okay, so how do we unpack that? I mean, to start, there was something that I picked up on, which is that he still, even after this entire hearing and after the victims came up and spoke about what he did to their mother, he still only said that he's sorry for what he's done. He's sorry for the act that he committed, not acts. And I wanted to bring that up because this hearing was a fiasco, in my opinion. But let's just listen to this.
I know I have caused a lot of pain and grief for my senseless act, but I will be granted or denied.
For my senseless act, not acts. And this hearing is just a disaster. And I do try to avoid hearings where you have both Jim Wise and Miss Wise. And the reason is because you often end up with hearings like this. They go through the entire hearing of nearly an hour where they don't ask him a single time, what did you do? They don't ask him a single time, tell us what you did. It was nothing. Jim Wise comes in and he's just, I cannot, I'm sorry if it's obnoxious that how much he frustrates me, but he's just awful. He comes in just talking nonsense. Trying to get to the root of the programs is like the first thing. And how many programs did you complete since your last hearing? And I think they answered him like 4 times. And the warden says, well, there's only so many programs he could take. And then he brings up something which makes no sense, which is, well, I see you have a good time date of 2075. So trying to get you, more programs for the good time date. It's like, what? Dude, it's 2075. He is not getting out on good time, no matter how many programs he takes. Math doesn't work that way, Jim Wise. Dude, you should know that. I mean, come on. You can't get like 30 years of good time. What are you even saying? And the idea that he doesn't understand just how things work, that he would say that, it's just absurd. And he even finished with it. He even finishes his statement. It made no sense again. Telling the family he's going to get out sometime. No, he won't necessarily. It's a 2075 good time. It might as well be life. And I think the most good time we've ever seen anyone get is like, I don't know, 60 months or something. I mean, there's only so much you can get. Wow. Of course, Mr. Marabella didn't do any better. He didn't ask him what he did. He didn't go into the details. It's, thankfully we had the DA there show up, which was nice. And we had the family members that had to come and say exactly what happened, although they're being cut off mid-speech. And it's like, yeah, they've waited 25 years to say this. You can really cut them off. I mean, I get it that some of it was, but the way that they're being cut off it's frustrating. And again, he didn't take accountability. He said the act he committed. He was never asked to say what he did. And I just don't get it. And about the Act 790. Again, it's not something I recall ever hearing brought up. And I'll drop this link in the description, but it's like it's not clear to me in this 56-page document. They only bring up Act 790 like in the right here. And it's basically just addressing, they actually use the words that her attorney used in this document, which I thought was quite an interesting way of phrasing it. You know, it's funny how lawyers come up with different ways of saying, "Oh, we should release the person who was given a life sentence for this horrendous act because they're going through criminal menopause." And it's like, oh, criminal menopause. Of course. Right. It's that that thing that criminals go through. What? I did try to find, you know, that guy's still a young guy. He's a big guy. He's probably in better shape than 90% of us watching this thing. And he doesn't look like he's in criminal menopause to me. I didn't see, I couldn't find a lot of details on the actual act, or I would have read it. I asked ChatGPT, they don't have it. I did some Googling. I really, if I can get more, then I'll like to do an unpacking of it. But this huge document, they really don't. They just kind of reference other acts like Act 122 and where this act fits in. But I mean, in short, Act 122 was an act that was passed, actually lobbied through the Louisiana Parole Project. So always follow the paper trail, the money trail, right? The Louisiana Parole Project gets basically, in a nutshell, there was a bipartisan bills that have been passed in Louisiana to reduce all their incarceration rates, because they per capita have one of the highest prison rates in the country. Not total numbers, but a total number of population, so to percentage. So they've committed to invest something, the exact number, but it's like, I don't know, 30 or 40 or $50 million a year to alternative incarceration or alternative programs to release prisoners. I shouldn't call it incarceration. And so you have the Parole Project that saw dollar signs and says, wow, that's a lot of money. So they created a non-for-profit, and then now they're one of those facilities that can take these inmates and get this, tap into these millions and millions of dollars that are being funneled into this new system. And then the Parole Project lobbies to pass legislation to let more prisoners out, because prisoners are clients. And that's how they lobbied to get Act 122. Act 122 is quite interesting in the sense that in some ways it's pretty good. So an inmate who was tagged as an habitual offender and is sitting in life in prison, but is not a violent offender, was caught selling, you know, the devil's lettuce 3 times over 10 years, and now you're a habitual offender, life in prison. Yes, that person should qualify under Act 122, but it, of course, ends up covering a lot more than that. It ends up covering the most horrible cases. And basically anyone who has served more than like 20 years and is above a certain age falls under the umbrella of Act 122, almost no matter how horrendous their crime is. But, you know, there are certain people who don't fall under it. And the money is being funneled out, and the Louisiana Parole Project is making a lot of that money. And to be a non-for-profit doesn't mean you can't make profit. It only means, I believe, in this state, 10% of your income has to go to charity and 90% can be profit. That's my understanding. Don't quote me on that. So I kind of digress. I'm sorry for boring any of you. I would have liked to have gone into the details of this case, but he didn't appeal. So there are no court documents. I can't read the details. You know, Richard does the research that he can, but there's nothing available. sadly. So I can't be more helpful as I would like to normally be when I unpack these cases. I'm just gonna harp on again that this case, I mean, the way that it was that they handled it was just, I think, an embarrassment. Really not. And you hear from the victims how they feel like they're being victimized. You know, the poor mother is not sleeping. It's like to put them through this. And even she's saying, I never heard him apologize for that. And even in his final speech, he didn't acknowledge that it was multiple acts. It was one act. And you know, you got to hear, someone has to they have to hold themselves accountable for what they did, even if he wasn't billed it or found guilty of it, or you know. So I think that's telling there. If he doesn't hold himself accountable for what he did there to her, then you have to, I think, have to assume that he's just playing the whole game and doesn't actually feel remorse. But that's just my 2 cents. You might say, oh, but his attorney would say don't, but it doesn't, my understanding, it doesn't work that way. He can't incriminate himself. He can't be charged for this. So it's more of a, it doesn't have to do with that. But he was denied. He's still locked up. And, you know, this hearing took place in 2021. So we you know, when he does get up for another one, we'll play it for you. But with that, I'll let you go.